Well, hello everyone. Good morning or good afternoon or good evening, depending on when you're listening to this podcast. I'm Coach Megan, and welcome to all of our brand new listeners. This is part 2 of the series Free to Be Me, and I'm so honored to be your host today. This has been such a powerful series, and it's such an important topic for men and women alike to understand that God created them to stand out and not fit in. So I hope that you guys, I know that you guys will really enjoy this podcast today. I had so much fun recording it, and let's go ahead and dive right in. Well, what's up, everybody? I'm so excited to be with you all today, and it's really funny, actually. I was just looking over my notes that I wrote last week for the first episode of this podcast, and I was trying to remember what the heck did I even talk about last week and which parts did I get to, because y'all know me. I kind of like to bounce around, very gut person, spontaneous, 8-wing 7, and so sometimes it's hard for me to be not logical, but to go from A to B to C to D is totally not how my brain works. That's why I have people around me who are way more streamlined in that way. So bear with me, but I might repeat a couple things from last week, but it's going to be awesome. I think that this topic of learning how to live in freedom is so incredibly important, and something that is unfortunately just not really taught. One second, I'm adjusting my microphone. Not really taught both in school, but also in church sometimes. We just don't get very practical with it. And this has been a journey that the Lord has really been taking me through in my own personal life as we grow to $1 million company and we extend ourselves to onboard new employees. We are completely restructuring all of Powerhouse right now, and I'm competing for Miss USA. Obviously, we are trying to navigate the journey of what that looks like when, if it'll happen, and thinking beyond to even if I were to go to Miss Universe, what that would look like. So it's been a really crazy time, but I just want to encourage you guys, whether you feel like you're in a healing season or a waiting season, or even really, really busy like I am. Quarantine, I think, has been something that a lot of us can actually look at as a positive. And I understand, my goodness, if you're going through financial trouble, or you are somebody who, my gosh, unfortunately is home with an abusive spouse or relationship, not only does my heart go out to you, but also I'm encouraging you, let this be a word from God, to seek help. There are people out there who will take you in, and there are hotlines for that, people who will find resources for you. So that was just really on my heart to say. But for anybody who's maybe not in that situation, if you are safe and fortunate enough to have a job, or even if you were laid off during this season and were able to get a job at Walmart, or somewhere else, first of all, thank you for being willing to be in public in this season. But I'm going to kind of talk to maybe a different group of people today, although this applies to everyone, where I really believe that God is calling people in this season to be innovators and to stop sitting around and waiting for this grand opportunity to come across their shoulders. So a little bit of my story with that. 4 years ago, Powerhouse will be 4 years old on June 2nd, which is crazy because it's less than a month away. And it seems like just yesterday we were celebrating our first birthday. I mean, seriously, I remember wanting to get balloons for myself and take a cute Instagram picture when we turned 1. And I was a party of 1 back then, and I felt like no one cared about what I was doing. But man, it is so cool to see just how things have grown. And get ready, y'all, because we are about to set fire to Powerhouse in a great way, and things are really about to mobilize. But I remember feeling so alone in the beginning, and when I started my company, not even having really a direction. A lot of you guys have heard this story of where I wanted to take the company, where I felt like God was calling me to, and then the Lord kept bringing me pageant women. And now 4 years later, as I continue to coach in over 30 states in our nation, and we've expanded, into I think like 5 more just since January with amazing women, it makes so much sense. And during this quarantine, even because a lot of my clients are listening to this, it's been really cool to see now how the Lord has revealed the overarching call of God on my life through different mentors really speaking into my life that I've been praying for literally 2 years. Real Talk Kim, Sandy Krakowski, like I just posted on my Instagram earlier today at the time of this recording. And I cannot say enough, you guys, how incredibly important it is to have other powerhouse women in your life who have gone where you want to go and who operate in the security, the sense of wholeness and confidence that you are looking for in your own self, in your own being. If you, and I want to speak to this too, if you feel like you might be in a confusion season right now, or in a chaos season, a season of waiting, a season of healing, where you're just like, oh my gosh, I need to discern the voice of God, but I just have no idea how to do that, I highly encourage you to go back to the last time where you had peace, and to go back to the last time where you heard God's voice. Because the chances are, and I'm just going to say this bluntly, y'all know me, the chances are that we screwed it up, and that we followed a bunny trail of something that looked like God, but wasn't, and at the end of the day, God is not the author of confusion. We have an enemy of our soul that is, and he will try and take you down any path that leads to destruction. And we're going to talk about guilt, shame, and condemnation, the destructive triplets, as well as power, love, and a sound mind, which are the power triplets, like I like to call. And I can tell you that when I started to really take my freedom seriously in my own world, it was just like the Lord's voice opened back up to me in such an intimate way. And I don't even mean audibly, but just, I can't even describe to you guys how much it felt like God never left me. And when I got that recollection and realization that literally I could lay on the floor and choose to think of specific words or ways that I wanted things to manifest in my life, and that was as pleasing to God as reading 20 chapters of the Bible or dancing around to worship music, because the Bible says that he's given us a garment of praise for a spirit of heaviness, that pleases God just as much as reading the Bible does, or praying, with your head on the ground and your butt in the air for 20 hours. Being a Christian and being a person of faith and being led by the Holy Spirit and being a woman and a leader and a boss and a powerhouse doesn't have to be a somber life of religious, legalistic, whacking all the fun out of things. And I think that that's one of the biggest preconceived false notions of most people. And through, like I said, the mentors in my life and God speaking to me, I can't tell you how many layers have come off of me where I don't really have another way to say this, but where God has restored the IDGAF mentality, if I'm being completely honest. I was caught in this cycle. And again, go look at my recent post on Instagram. This is May 4th today, if you guys are listening to this. So this will be posted on May 5th, I believe. I need to look at my watch. Is that what today is? Yeah, May 4th. So this will be posted. This Instagram post was posted on May 4th, the time of this recording. But I was really struggling, even as a strong conqueror, powerhouse woman, confident. I was really struggling with putting my dreams in the hands of people who were good people, but just not at all in the direction of where God wanted me to be. But it looked like the easiest path. It looked like the most obvious path. It looked like the most direct path. And so what I did was I sacrificed actually being able to get from point A to B and living in freedom, and had to go around the mountain several other times. And I hope that you guys can resonate with this. And I'm just being real with you that it happens to everybody. It happens to every great leader in your life, probably multiple times, where we thought that the road was obvious, but it just reminds me of Jonah, where it's like, hey, Jonah, go to Nineveh. Hey, Jonah, go to Nineveh. And Jonah ends up in the belly of a whale, and God still redeems him, and he still, ends up getting his promise. But I don't know about y'all, but I'm not trying to get in a whale and have to claw my way out of a different animal that God never created me to live in. That's not my calling. And I saw the funniest meme the other day, you guys. Oh my gosh, I saw the literal funniest meme where it said, yo, it said, whoever was supposed to go to Nineveh, go already, about this coronavirus. And I fell over laughing. That was the funniest thing in the world. They said, just go to Nineveh already. Yo, if you don't get that, you can DM me and I'll explain it to you later. Just go read not the book of Jonah. Wow. That's a good Christian trivia, by the way. Go read about Jonah in the Bible, oh my gosh, I'm literally crying right now. I'm laughing my head off. That is so freaking funny. But anyways, I don't want y'all to have to go around the mountain 8 extra times or waste 3 extra years of your life or get to another birthday and look back and guilt, shame, and condemnation take over in your life and try and tell you that you're nothing or that you're never going to amount to those dreams that God's put in your heart, or allow the devil to create such confusion and self-hatred and just like questioning of yourself. You guys, I can't describe it, but like for so long, it was a 3-year period actually, 2.5, 3 years. I was somehow had gotten so concerned with putting my calling in the hands of other people that I wasn't listening to God to make a way where there was no way. And honestly, not even where there was no way, but just to like make it happen. And here was God trying to make it happen the whole time, but he's given us a free will to be able to make choices. And I think a lot of times it's a lot easier to blame the bad things on God and then praise him for the good things and the bad things. But I think that we take a huge part of the equation out of it that is a part of the equation and should be a part of the equation when we deny the fact that we have a responsibility in making our dreams come true. And so that applies to your freedom as well, you guys. And that's why I want to talk about this today, because you are single-handedly like cutting off half of your extremities and then trying to run when you don't accept the responsibility that all you have to do is be obedient and put your perspective in the hands of pleasing God. And the good news is it's not that hard. Like, it's not hard. You literally just have to get in his presence and he'll talk to you and he'll love on you and he'll love you back to life and he'll restore your soul, which is your mind, your will, and your emotions. So if you're feeling like your mind and your emotions and your will, your ability to make decisions are out of whack right now, I encourage you that you might need to just go sit in the presence of the Lord and cut some people out of your life and put them in the bleachers like we talked about last week. And I think that that's a misconception in Christianity too, because we have been taught that we need to be loving and nice to everyone, and we do. We need to be loving and we need to be nice. But what that doesn't mean is that you need to let everybody in your front door and house them and entertain them and give them food when they're not paying their rent, right? They're not doing their due diligence to add to your own life. And the beautiful thing is God will lead you as to who those people are and who those people are in what seasons, right? There are some people that come in your life for beautiful reasons and for beautiful seasons. And seasons end, they change, they're different. And I think sometimes we get so control happy that or even go to the other end of the pendulum, or maybe we've been criticized for being a control freak, or your leadership has been criticized, your innate ability to stand out has been criticized. And so what you do is you introvert, you get introverted and you go back into your shell and you say, okay, well, it's just easier to fit in and to camouflage myself than be ridiculed for standing out. And I just rebuke that in the name of Jesus right now. It's so freaking funny and it's such a lie and it makes me so mad because we always have things to work on. Don't get me wrong. Personal development, spiritual development, emotional intelligence is so important. And if you've listened to me for 5 seconds, you know that I believe that and that I'm always pursuing that in my own journey. But you need to be really, really aware of the pharisaical, legalistic, religious, I'm right all the time, judicial people in your life that are just constantly passing judgment like they know everything without having that level of relationship with you, or who only reach out to you when they need you or need something from you. That's going to be so incredibly toxic, I'm just being honest. And it's going to be draining, and then you're going to get in the cycle of trying to please man more than you're trying to please God or follow your own calling, and you're going to be chasing your own tail, trying to amount to something that's not even possible. It's so not even possible, you guys. And just take it from somebody who knows. Just go do what God's told you to do. And if that's being a part of something else, if you're not called to be a creator, a CEO, the person in front, then awesome. Be obedient to what God is calling you to come underneath of. But I remember that Real Talk Kim when we were chatting offline after the podcast that we did a couple months ago. I can't believe that was a couple months ago already. By the way, go back and listen to that if you haven't, because it'll blow your mind. I was just asking her about different things, and she said, Megan, why would God call you to be a part of something that you couldn't lead? And I was like, that just rocked my world. I don't know the answer to that. She goes, well, are you a leader? And I was like, yes, every fiber of my being. And she goes, great. Then does God know that? I was like, yeah. She's like, did God make you? I was like, yeah. She's like, did God create you with your personality? Yeah. She's like, okay, great. Then quit getting caught up in this legalism that you're just called to be this follower, when you have fruit and influence in every area of your life other than this area that's holding you back. And I was like, doing, that just makes sense. But I think a lot of times, you guys, we try and change ourselves to fit a mold that we were never shaped for, we were never created for. And that's really the point across that I want to get across today, is that your freedom is tied up in that obedience and being able to get in the secret place and hear from the voice of God and be obedient to what he's told you to do. Okay, so I digress on that part. We're going to move on into kind of the next part, but I had to get that little part out first. That was totally the Holy Spirit off book, but I'm really glad that we talked about that. So, by the way, if you guys have been listeners for a while, I would really appreciate, just kind of as a sidebar, if you guys would go and after this episode, go and leave us a positive review on Apple Podcasts, on Podbean, on Google Play, all the different platforms that we're on. That would really mean a lot to me. Or comment on our website, powerhousepageantry.com/podcast. We've been doing this for a while now, and we want to continue to reach more and more people. So if you want to pause and share this with one person that you know is just living bound right now or isn't living up to their full potential, press the share button on your phone. If you have an iPhone, it's super easy. I don't understand Android, so it's probably easy for y'all too, but I honestly have absolutely no idea how that works. But press the little share button, send it to 1, 2, 5, 10 people who you know need to hear this, and let's keep sharing this positivity and this word specifically for women, because I am on a mission to impact millions and millions of women with messages of freedom and hope and operating in their calling. So thank you so much for doing that in advance. Okay, so let's get into the rest of this. So I'm going to bop around a little bit on my notes because, like I said, I have a ton here. We kind of already covered this, but the first point that I want to say today in freedom is, like I said, we have to accept and believe that we are created to live 100% free and freely you. If we can't accept that God has created us and called us to be different, then it's going to be really, really hard for us to mobilize and take action on those things if we're too uncomfortable with standing out, okay? So you got to accept that God's called you to stand out, even if you are a helper, even if you're called to be a number 2 or come alongside of another really bold leader, you're still called to stand out and to be known for the unique way that you think, act, and choose, the unique gifts that God's given you, personality, talents. Our brains are naturally wired differently. And it's one of the most beautiful things in the world when we give people permission to be, operate, and do their God-given talents rather than telling them that they need to fit into a role that was never created for them. And like I said earlier, remember that when you're feeling stressed, a really great tool is there's so many different ways to get in the presence of God. There are so many different ways to hear his voice. And God's not more proud of you if you just sit and memorize things to please him, or act extra good because you think it's going to impress him, or you just deny yourself as a soldier in God's army. Yes, we need to operate in self-discipline, absolutely, positively. It is one of the fruits of the Spirit, is self-control. But that stuff can really wound the soul, you guys. And it's really easy to get into that legalistic, people-pleasing, yuck, and you'll find yourself in confusion and just burnt out really, really, really quickly. And what you're going to find is that it doesn't produce fruit in your life. It just doesn't. A bad root produces bad fruit. So go get your roots right, and I promise you that it'll start to develop fruit, and you'll start taking direction in your life, which is so awesome, okay? The next thing I want to say today is I want to talk about kind of 2 more things. I want to talk about how to say no to things, and then I want to help you guys a little bit with slowing down your thoughts and having a routine for taking out the trash in your thought life, mental self-care, and how to really implement these techniques to make intelligent choices and get some progress on the pathway to your purpose. I was just talking with somebody yesterday actually, and was coaching somebody over the weekend, helping them develop a morning and a night routine, which is what I do with all of my clients. And it was so cool. They texted me this morning and they said, oh my gosh, like I'm a little bit tired, but I feel so accomplished. It's only 9 a.m. I went through my whole routine and now I feel like I have energy to go throughout the whole day. Last week we talked a little bit about energy in, energy out, which is productivity, not time in, time out. And so, which is funny, like don't put yourself in timeout, LOL, but give yourself the energy to actually get through your day rather than just condemning yourself for not being able to get through your day. Like that's a novel idea, right? Why don't they teach us that in school? But I'm going to bop around a little bit on my second page of notes, and we're going to start with learning how to say no, and then we're going to get a little bit more into the self-care routine. So the free will thing that we talked about earlier, okay? So God has given you a free will. Mind, will, and emotions are a part of the soul. You're a 3-part being, spirit, soul, and body. I'm very practical, by the way. So like literally, if y'all want to take notes, I think that's awesome. If y'all need to pause this recording and take notes, whenever I make my eggs in the morning, my breakfast, or I make my protein shake in the morning, I'm always listening to an audio, and it's called passive versus active learning. So active learning is when you're sitting down and you've literally got the notes and you're like word for word typing, writing, whatever. But passive learning is also awesome. But I encourage you guys to still have a notebook, like your journal, close to you where you can write down notes. And it'll help you to still catch information that otherwise might just go right by your head. Obviously, if you're in the car, you can't do that. Please don't text and drive. But if you're like cooking in the morning or getting your makeup on, I highly encourage you to have some kind of a form of notes to write it down. Even if you never were to look at it again, it'll still solidify it a little bit more in your mind, and it'll help you tremendously, okay? So God gave us a free will, and as humans, we have choices. I love the verse that says you are not entangled in a yoke of bondage, but rather it talks about how his yoke is easy and his burden is light. So kind of a checkpoint. And again, like I try and be as practical as possible. I want to demystify the Bible. I want to demystify spirituality and help you guys practically apply these things in a really logical black and white way. God's made me with a black and white brain, and I want to make things simple and not heady and all academic and these thous and theys and blah, 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 right? I want to make this super practical so that y'all can say, oh my gosh, like I did that and it legit helped me. Like, holy crap, I had no idea that spirituality was so practical. I'm like, yeah, God didn't make something like super heady just so that only like the elite of the elite can understand it. That's such a freaking lie. I hate it. Anyways, so you are not entangled in a yoke of bondage, but rather his yoke is easy and his burden is light. So if something is not easy and you are feeling the burden of life on your shoulders, it is not from God. Like, wow, does that make sense? It's so simple. Yeah, it is. And like, I think I said this last week, but remember that the voice of the enemy can come through well-meaning people who are caught up in their own junk and who have their own lens and who might act weird. Everyone acts weird when they're feeling controlled, or when they're feeling, I should say, out of control. So being able to turn your brain on and say, that's weird. I'm feeling guilt, shame, or condemnation, which are, like I said, the opposite of the power triplets. They are the destructive triplets. If you are ever feeling guilt, shame, or condemnation from someone who might be tearing down your actions and your character, rather than just giving you constructive criticism for your actions, good leaders, and I'm so freaking adamant about this, you guys, because it ticks me off when people don't do this, because I've had it done to me so often. When people assume each other's intent, I just am up a wall. If you want to make me mad in about 3 seconds, that's the 8 like justice person in me who hates when people pick on victims or pick on the innocent. Like, I cannot stand it. You want to make me mad in 3 seconds? When people assume other people's intent, and instead of building relationship and loving them and saying, hey, like, what was your reasoning behind this? Hey, like, let's talk about your intentions. Let's talk about your heart. They just absolutely like destroy them and say, this is why you did this. And they assume a character flaw, and they speak down to someone's character. And I'm so sorry if this has happened to you, by the way. I cannot stand it. And definitely the opposite of how I coach. You can ask my clients, they will vouch for me. It's probably why we're pretty successful. But that's the way to give constructive feedback, is people really do need and deserve 2 positives for every negative. And gosh, I'm just saying this for all leaders listening. If you cannot find something positive about someone, then you have no right to give them a negative. And your heart's not in the right place to give them a negative. I know that's pretty bold for me to say that, but it's just like, people always say, don't punish your kids when you're angry. It's very much that. If you're in a position of leadership and you can't find something good to say about someone to make sure that you are building up their character, then you do not deserve nor have the right to tear down even their actions, even if they were wrong, okay? And I know that some of you guys listening are more nitpicky than others are. Specific personalities are nitpickier than other people are, especially if you are an Enneagram 1 and you just see the world. And God's given that as a blessing to see details and to see things that are wrong, and that can be a huge strength. But just be really careful that you are seeing people as much as you are seeing the task that needs to be completed before you, okay? Be really, really careful, because that is the easiest way to break trust with people and the easiest way to hurt a lot of people. I've seen it done time and time and time again, where people are serving someone, or people who are following somebody, well-meaning, and everybody's well-meaning, but they tear down their character along with their actions, rather than building up their character and saying, hey, I love you. I love your heart behind this. I think you're trying so hard. You're doing a great job. Now here's one suggestion. And honestly, you guys, that just comes out of a heart of developing love for people. If you love people more than you love the end result, then you will treat people differently. Okay, so I'll get off my high horse with that, but that was the Holy Spirit, because I am so passionate about that, because I feel like when you love people, it is impossible. We have our moments, of course, but like, why would I ever want to just tear someone to shreds and make them feel bad? Like, people have good intentions 99.9% of the time, especially if they're in a position of serving you or serving someone. Like, I just don't understand why you would ever want to make someone else feel lower. And you want to know the answer? It's because they're not operating in wholeness, and they're operating in insecurity. So I'm like, okay, moving on. So, and also because guilt, shame, and condemnation is not from God. So if your own thoughts or the thoughts of somebody else are full of guilt, shame, and condemnation, blame, I want you to know right now, black and white, that is not from God. It doesn't mean that we don't have things to change. It doesn't mean that we don't have things to fix, okay? It doesn't mean that we just get to play a victim. It doesn't mean that we blame that other person. Oh, they were mean to me. That means I don't have to change. No, it's both. But it's partnership, and it's relationship, and it's understanding that I can learn to self-govern myself. And again, that's why you might be in a situation where your boss is just awful and they don't understand those leadership principles and they do tear you down all the time. Then you need to make sure that your morning routine is so strong and that you are really managing that energy input, energy output. If you need to take a break every hour and a half from work for 5 minutes and go walk around your office, or go get a drink of water, and speak some affirmations in the bathroom over yourself, like whatever you need to do. That's why I'm such a stickler for mental and emotional health and building yourself up and energy input, because so many things are out of our control in life. I want to make sure that you guys aren't just surviving, but you can really thrive in your present situation until you're able to change it and make your life what you want. Okay. Gosh, this is good today. Y'all feeling it? If you haven't sent this to somebody by now, you need to. Okay, go send this to 5 people, pause this, and come back. Okay, that's your homework for this week. All my clients know they get homework every week to work with me, and then they come back with an expectation. I'm like, yo, did you do this? Did you do this? I love you. Did you do this? Okay, why didn't you do it? In a good way, I promise. Like I said, they know that I love them. Okay, so the last thing that I want to hit on today, there's so much. Gosh, okay. So we talked about taking out the trash of your thought life. We talked about that a little bit last week, so we're good with that. Okay, so last thing I want to talk about is how to slow down some of those thoughts by having a routine for the triggers that happen. Gosh, do I want to go all the way into the journaling? We'll go a little bit into this today. Okay, so especially in this time of quarantine, having a routine is so incredibly important, y'all. It is so important because having a routine, first of all humans crave control. All humans do. I don't care if you are a self-proclaimed control freak or not. And I used to joke about that with myself because I had those words spoken over me a lot as a child and also in previous relationships. But I'm not claiming that anymore. I'm not a control freak, but I am in control. when the devil tries to throw thoughts at me, I am in control because I have dominion over him, and I have authority over him, and I have authority over my own mind and my own emotions and my own life. So, I just encourage you guys to speak that out and say, I rebuke and I reject the spirit of control over my life if people have spoken that over you. And also, you might need to rebuke or reject a victim spirit or a persecutor spirit, like they talk about the, what's that called? Like, it's like the unhealthy triangle, whatever. So I just encourage you to speak that out loud and just encourage Jesus to come in and heal your heart in that. But I just break those word curses off of you in Jesus' name right now. Okay, so it's super important during quarantine, but also not in quarantine, because a lot of y'all will listen to this later, to have a routine, morning routine, nighttime routine. They can be 15 minutes long, or you can be weird like me, and they're like 2 hours long, because I need a long time to study, and I'm just a knowledge junkie. 8s and 5s specifically are just like ridiculous learners who love to have hobbies in like 8,000 areas, and knowledge makes them feel safe. We're super, super wired to be logical, black and white, unemotional beings, which is why I pair myself with a crap ton of 2s in my life who are the empathetic, sympathetic wizards of the world. So props to y'all if you are wired that way. And some of y'all might need more people like me in your life who are a bit more logical, who can help you slow down and calm down when those emotions are going crazy. But that's why we listen to things like this podcast that'll help you, okay? So morning routines can consist of a couple things. It's very important to have a journal. I'm creating one right now that I have no idea how long that's going to come out, but I'm creating a journal right now that has the exact steps to my morning routine, the different pages. It's about 5 pages long that I journal every day, except for Sundays usually, just because I kind of spend time just with God on Sundays and with family. But I have 5 pages of my journal. If you want to know more about what that is, you can totally sign up for a coaching call with me, either life coaching or pageant coaching, obviously, for interview. But I have a page for business stuff. I have a page for spiritual and mental health stuff. I have a page for just kind of dumping my thoughts for the day. I have a page for my daily review, and I have a page for a weekly review. I also have a page for the difference between working in the business and on the business, but that's way too much to go into detail. But having a plan for that in the morning, knowing what order I journal and I read, I turn on my Audible, I make my coffee, I make my breakfast, I work out, all of that is scheduled to a T in the morning. And especially working from home, this has enabled me to really thrive during quarantine and still project and set some amazing goals for growing my company, and expanding its territory, expanding my territory. And when you have a time of visualization in the morning where you allow God to even like tell you what the next obedient step is and where he'd have you in the next season, if you don't have that time, how do you expect to get your marching orders for like what you're even supposed to do, you know? And it's been such a gorgeous season just believing God for the next steps, which I'll continue to reveal to you guys as we go along. We are relaunching all of our programs in August. We are expanding into a greater staff and really, really building our plan to be $1 million company in the next year and a half or so, which is so exciting. So y'all can be praying for us just to reach more people. I want to come out with my first book next year. I'm writing a devotional right now. And by the way, if you've been listening for a while, just kind of as a side note, if you're not in our inner circle yet, what are you doing? It is an incredible, what is the inner circle? It's an incredible time every 2 weeks that a bunch of girls from all over the country get together and we talk mindset principles, communication skills, sometimes relationships. We talk about routines. We talk about thought structures. Just if you've enjoyed this podcast and you want it on a deeper level and you want to get to know some amazing women who, are from ages, like 13 all the way to 27 right now, who are holding each other accountable, and they're in social media groups, they're doing challenges together, they're doing Facebook Lives together. They have each other's back. Some of these girls have been friends for 2-3 years now. If you're not in the inner circle, feel free to email us, info@powerhousepageantry.com, or just fill out the contact us form on our website and we'll get you hooked up with that. It is less than the cost of one coaching session with me. Like literally the entire month costs less than 1 hour of coaching with me one-on-one. So why are you not in it? That's all I'm saying, okay? And we are also relaunching the Interview Mastery Academy next month, and it will be at a special quarantine price. So be on the lookout for that. That'll be everything that you need for interview coaching and interview mastery. Absolutely everything. It's my whole teaching process. There'll be documents attached to it. It's an 8-week course, and it will absolutely be everything that you need to dominate your interview for your pageants. But honestly, could also be used towards regular interviews. It's obviously geared toward pageantry, but if you want more information on that, feel free to message me. Otherwise, y'all will all be seeing ads for that on Facebook and Instagram in the next month. And if you don't join now, you will probably join later, or it'll be more expensive. So Inner Circle and the Interview Mastery Academy course, just email us or fill out the form on our website, and we will get back to you, one of the members of our team. Okay. So the last part of this, thank you for coming to my TED Talk. The last part of this is how to slow down those thoughts. Okay, so again, I was coaching somebody this weekend, and they were kind of having a freak out in the morning, and there were just a couple things that just kind of threw them off. And it was like 5 little things, and of course, me on the other end of the phone, I'm super black and white. I immediately go into action mode, and in my mind, I was just thinking to myself, and I'm like, gosh, why are these tiny, tiny little things making this person freak out? And so I started coaching them, and we had a conversation on the phone for about 20 minutes. And by the end of the 20 minutes, they were like, oh my gosh, Coach Megan, I feel so much better. I just feel so relieved. This is awesome. Like, wow, that's amazing. I really need to put in some of these practices. And so I think you guys, literally just to give you some perspective, I don't want to share too much, but it was like the smallest of things that were bothering them. Like, they couldn't log into one of their accounts on their computer. And then they had made one purchase from a website that said the shipping was supposed to come in a week, and it had been 8 days and it still wasn't shipped. And so they're freaking out, and they thought that they had gotten scammed. And so I'm asking them all these questions. And what I found was that oftentimes when people have freak out emotional moments and their fight or flight is engaged, or kind of that red alert status, and their whole body starts to feel the effects of fear or anxiety, what I found is that a lot of times it's because they're not operating through the self-coaching model, which we've talked about, and go back and listen to that episode if you haven't yet. I've talked about it many times. But also what happens is they start, first of all, not taking those thoughts captive, not looking at their mind and being aware of what those thoughts are. But then also what they're doing is they're then attaching it to their identity. And so they're saying, oh, because I couldn't log into this password and I couldn't figure it out, and this thing doesn't have technical support, therefore I'm stupid, or therefore I can't do this, or therefore I'll never be able to handle technical things. This person is also starting a business. I'm helping them start a company. And so, of course, that's stressful in itself. There's so many things going on in starting a business. And so what I found is I kept asking them, and I questions. And they started to say, well, and it makes me feel like I'm never going to be able to start a company and successfully be a CEO of a company if I can't even get this right. And I said, there it is. And I said, okay, I want you to look at that thought and observe that thought for a second. Does that make logical sense? And of course, after thinking about it, they're like, no, it doesn't, right? And so we were able to observe all these different thoughts that it wasn't even necessarily the initial thought, because situations are not in our control. It's not their fault that they can't get a hold of the customer service of this giant company, but it is in our control when we attach those initial situations to the string of thoughts that then go to shape our identity after that. So a couple techniques that you guys can use is, like I said, managing your mind, looking at those thoughts and asking yourself questions about, like, does this even make any remotely any sense whatsoever when I actually bring logic on the scene? Usually they don't, and that can help you process those things. The second thing is there are tons of breathing techniques for empathy and just taking burdens off your shoulders. Like, really learn how to coach yourself, learn how to slow down, count to 5 on an inhale, 5 on an exhale, like we've talked about on previous episodes, and give yourself coaching like you would somebody else, okay? If you saw somebody else going through the situation, what would you tell them? How would you comfort them? And why are you doing the opposite to yourself? That doesn't make any sense, okay? And then the last thing, like I said, is you can count. You can set intentions for inhale and exhale. Like, you could focus on the word freedom. You could focus on the word peace. You could focus on I can, and just kind of see that in your mind's eye for 5 inhales and 5 exhales. And the last thing that you can do, which is going to sound really silly, but totally from my singer brain, is you can do lip trills. So this is going to sound really dumb, but I learned this from another meditation practitioner. And you literally go... Literally. So that probably sounded super weird over the microphone, but it's awesome. And it takes forced breath. It takes diaphragmatic breathing. I think actually the word is diaphragmatic breathing. Somebody can look that up. But it forces you to focus your mind and your thoughts on something else other than that repeating thought. So wow, that was a lot today. That was super deep. I encourage you guys to really meditate on this and maybe play this back a couple times. This is one of my longer episodes, 40 minutes, probably, almost right on the dot today. But share this with a friend. Go back over this. Go take notes if you know that this is what you needed to hear today. And I'd love, as always, for you guys to send me a message or write a review telling me what you want to hear more of, what parts of this ministered to you the most today. If you needed to hear this, feel free to drop some quotes on your Instagram stories. But I just want to keep encouraging as many people as I possibly can. I want to love people back to their identity that God created them to walk in and be in. And in a world and a time where so many things are out of our control, I want you guys to feel empowered and equipped to walk and operate in the identity unapologetically that God created you to live in. So I hope that this is a blessing to you today. Like I said, I know that it will be, because this is God's truth and that produces life. And I'm just praying for you guys today. I love each and every single one of you who listen to my podcast, even if this is your first time. Thank you so much. Share this with a friend, and there's some more information about the Inner Circle at the end of this if you guys would like to listen. But otherwise, feel free to just drop us a line on our website, on Instagram at The Powerhouse Project, or my personal Instagram, or email info@powerhousepageantry.com. We'll see you next week. Well, thanks so much for listening to this episode of Season 2 of the Powerhouse Podcast. I'm Coach Megan. As always, you can follow me at Megan_Swanson. You can DM us to join our email list. You can follow us at Powerhouse Pageantry or at The Powerhouse Project. And I'm so excited to get to continue to pour into your life spiritually, physically, financially, emotionally, mentally, and relationally. Wow, that's a mouthful. In this beautiful year of 2020. Never forget your worth. Stand up for what you believe in, and allow your spirit to stand up on the inside of you to show you who you really are. Have a great day.